Welcome to the Spectrum of Health podcast. And today, guys, we got a very, very special guest, Michele Risa, founder of Collaborative Solutions. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. Just because all the research I've done, and I think that there's going to be a lot of gems and a lot of inspirational information that's going to be shared today. So, firstly, Michele, I want to thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I know we connected on LinkedIn, and that's kind of how this got started. So, firstly, how are you?
I'm great. As I said to you, here's tip number one. When someone says, "How are you?" For me, my brain goes, whatever I just created determines how I am.
Okay.
Let's go right from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
We are creators of our life. So I appreciate someone may say, well, wait a minute, I don't create the weather, or I don't create these terrible things around me. And I will say, absolutely, you do not. And my favorite three-letter word in the English language, and you create your response to all of those events. So, and what's right before how you respond, how you see them. And what is right before how you see them? Your inner environment, right? So all we do is reflect out who we are inside. So if you want to be happy outside, then the wonderful journey is, how do I feel happy inside? A lot of us don't really know, me included. I ask myself that all the time. What do I need now to feel better about this or that? So it's an ongoing, wonderful investigation that I love, because then I get to, moment by moment, be a human, getting upset, being triggered. Okay. And the more conscious we are of this process I just outlined, Jav, the more we're able to go, okay, what do I need to feel good inside to then project that onto whatever event is occurring outside? And before I finish, and two quick examples, Nelson Mandela, while he was in jail, said 30 years. So certainly a minute or two, it said this very same thing, that they could take his body, but they couldn't take his mind and his soul. Don't know if he said soul, but I think he was implying that. Or, survivors of Auschwitz, the concentration camps. We have people who, again, have said, yes, I was there, but I wouldn't allow them to take my mind, my thoughts, my being. So just to say, if those two people, or Martin Luther King, I'll just use as a third example. Or since you're in the UK, Churchill. I mean, Churchill was inspiring when, the Nazis were bombing London, and, he had a certain perspective, right, that said to everyone, we're going to do this, So it's not just positive thinking. I really believe what I outlined is the essence of how we manifest a life that brings us joy.
So would you say that a lot of that is also, it kind of sounds like it's down to kind of learning what works for you in terms of creating that happy environment internally to then be able to express that?
What works, meaning, if I'm upset right now, what do I need to do to take care of me? It's responsibility. Taking care of self is each of our responsibility. And actually, if we all did that optimally, what a world we would have. If you, with all your unique skills, were optimally Jav, and I were taking care of me, and I was optimally Michele, etc., to every person listening, whoa, right? Then I turn to you for your contributions. Maybe you turn to me for mine. And collectively, whoa, what a world we would have. And notice I would not be imposing anything on you. Nothing. Except that you be your optimal, unique self and provide your unique contribution. So frequently, even when I speak about a collective, people go, oh my gosh, I'll lose the individual me. And the truth is, no, you won't. No, you won't, right? We don't need to impose, which most of us go to, but rather we can just give space to the other person discovering who they ideally are. And that's the work. That's the responsibility I believe we all have. How can I be my optimal self? And that's a big question. So I'll just quickly, what am I eating? How long am I sleeping? What am I surrounding myself with? Who am I surrounding myself with? I mean, so there's many components to life, and my responsibility is to take care of all of that.
Right.
And I would say that's all of it, right? But it's a big one.
Yeah. And okay, I was literally about to ask you what are some practical things you would give people, but you just listed a few in terms of the sleep and nutrition, which obviously this is a podcast about health and fitness, so that does play a major role. So okay, so with that being said, I kind of want to talk about obviously what you do now in terms of collaborative solutions and how it got started. What's the ethos? What's the message of it? And yeah, kind of break that down to me, because obviously I did read more about what you do, the mission statements and so on and so forth. But I kind of I always like when people verbalize it. So kind of tell me a little bit more about collaborative solutions and the work that you do.
Thank you. And it's always evolving, because I'm always evolving. I don't, that is what I think any successful business does. They don't say, well, we did that 20 years ago or 2 years ago, so we're going to stay with it. Well, okay, if it's, again, optimal, but not necessarily. So I'll just say I was doing a lot of conversations. They were called healing conversations, and inviting, many people to all over the world, because we were so contentious, to learn how to speak, but more importantly, how to listen to each other, which I'll just say many of us were brought up to think that communication meant, our in networking, we were, our elevator pitch is that some of us called it, what can I say in 30 seconds, 1 minute that will wow you? And I never believed in that. I always felt it to be artificial and like I was selling me, and I'm not a lover of sales. And I find that when I talk about communication and I include listening, I recall when I was working at Citibank, the treasurer at that time was purchasing different portfolios around the country. And he would tell me how whenever he entered any negotiation, the first thing he did was listen, right? That when we listen first, right, we get to really understand where the other person is coming from. And literally, if we're back to competition, which we have that part of us, it gives us a competitive advantage, actually, because we now know what motivates you. And so if I'm looking for common ground for us to work something out, I know what we have as difference, and I also need to find what's common so that we can find something that will work for us, right? So I just want to put that out there. So quickly, yes, communication has been a big part more since COVID of what I've been doing. Gave programs to Microsoft, MasterCard, and because we all just really can benefit from a slightly different take on the gems and jewels in communication. And I'm now, Jav, moving into creating community, as I just earlier described. As we fret from, I'll lose my, who am I, my individualism, as I just said, so I won't, repeat it. Actually, the only way we will survive together and thrive is building community where we all excel. And we need to learn how to do that. It's a new skill. So whenever transition occurs, of course, we're not going to get it right. Again, go back to business. Whenever they launch a product, some call it a pilot, which means not too sure. We'll learn from it and, expand it after we figure out how best to do it. So I would remind all of us to take any of what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Please don't believe me. Try it for yourself, create your own pilot, and, see what works and doesn't work.
Mm. And in
But
terms of no, sorry, go on,
I'm just going
continue.
to say, my belief is, just last thing, what I'm really advocating is we look at all the chaos and destruction of what no longer works internationally or even domestically, and realize in our own lives, sometimes things really need to crumble, right? For us to say, okay, that never worked anyway. Let me build something new that truly does in this time and space.
Mm. And in terms of the work that you do with businesses and companies, like I saw obviously on your profile, a lot of it is to do with um, employee retention, creating a better environment in the workplace. Like, what is that? How do you go about doing that in a practical sense? Like, what are some of the things that you kind of get companies to implement in order to create better relationships in the workplace?
Yeah. So what we know from research is we now more than ever need to build trust and connection, right? If we want collaboration and greater productivity and profit, right? We know how to focus on profit and productivity, right? We've been doing that since the industrial age began 70 years ago. Okay. What's lacking is trust and connection, right? And so there's no secret to the what, it's the how. So we know that once we build trust, people will work together or more likely find common ground. So for any company, right, that's critical to increase collaboration and productivity. And yes, the bottom line, profit, right? So it's again learning. If I want to build trust with you, the Dalai Lama says, the greatest gift we can give to someone else is the gift of being heard. The gift of being heard. So again, listen and let me have you feel that you have been heard. And I don't need to have fancy words. After you share with me, you could simply look at me, as you could actually right now, and say, thank you for sharing. Simple. So there's many simple steps we can all take to shift into this area of providing trust and holding space. And maybe just add one more in addition to our knowing our differences. How we look is different, maybe how we speak is different, our religions are different, our genders are different. Okay, we can go down that long list. And this gives us an opportunity to say, of course we are. Of course we are. And now what do we have in common if we truly want to coexist and thrive?
Mm. And so with that, you touched on people wanting to be heard or needing to be heard, especially in corporate environments or in businesses. And I also read, obviously, that you did some work with Deepak Chopra, and he was recently on a very big podcast here in the UK, The Diary of a CEO. And the tagline that they used was, he said on the podcast that stress will kill you. So how much of like the work that you did with him and his teachings, and also stress, how important is it for you when you are going into companies and teaching people, helping them kind of alleviate stress, minimize stress, things along that nature?
So let me say it's not just for businesses. In our families, Jeff, relationships are important to us as human beings. We are social beings. And I can't compartmentalize my business part. We used to 70 years ago. Oh, don't bring anything personal into work. No, they don't even tell us anything of what's going on. We don't want to hear it. To now, the Surgeon General of the United States saying, oh my gosh, we have mental illness that's become out of control. And more companies are saying to ignore this is at our own detriment. So we no longer, right, divide us, slice and dice us. So what I'm talking about is equally important to every relationship you have in your life, from your children, your spouse, your friends, whoever, your neighbors, as well as within business. In regards to stress, let me just be clear. When I was working with Deepak, we were moving yoga into hospitals. He was part of Urban Zen, which was offered by Donna Karen, DKNY. Some people may know the brand. And she had just lost her husband, Stephen, who she just couldn't believe how the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing in our traditional medical system. And so she had a whole program that I completed. It was called Urban Zen. And so Deepak was one of the teachers who came in, right, to help us, provide tools in addition to many other teachers. And I would say we now know scientifically that stress is like an alarm bell that is never shut off. There's nothing wrong in seeing danger. Tiger in front of me. Good thing to have. Stress. The problem, as many of us know, is the tiger isn't always following us, and we have a lot of ticks throughout the day that we never turn off, and that literally, yes, compromises our immune system, our nervous system, our digestive system, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the components to taking care of yourself is reducing stress in your life, right? And again, being honest with yourself. Others may have different formulas for doing that. But again, we need this ongoing, who am I and what do I need to be optimal? So what might be stressful for you isn't for me, and vice versa. And begin to make changes so that we're not literally, physically, and emotionally compromised. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And even from a health and fitness perspective, we a lot of coaches will tell our clients that, your stress management is one of the key pillars to getting you into better health, because actually you can have a man or a woman who has really high stress levels, which then affects other hormones in the body, as we know, which then can make that process of even trying to go down something such as simple as, going to the gym, trying to eat better, it can affect all areas. So that's interesting. But then I'd want to ask you one more question. And obviously we can't give a blanket message to everybody, but what are some of the things then that you would prescribe or tell someone to do? And again, each individual is different, but what are some of the things we could do to help individuals learn how to manage stress better? Because I personally work with men who want to get in better shape, right? That's kind of, as an overall, it's more than that, but that's just to give it an overall picture. And one of the biggest things I come across is stress, work, family, relationships. So what are some practical things that you could give? And also we can't give blanket prescriptions, but generally, what would you say? Because I know what I would say, but I'd like to know kind of what
right.
You would.
So I do shy away from, I can speak for myself.
Yeah.
Can help you find what it is for you. And so I'd be more general and be asking questions instead of dictating. How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Do you feel rested? That's not a prescription. That's, suggesting some amount of hours in order to wake up feeling refreshed. Do you want to? Now, some may say, no, okay. But I'd be asking questions. So it's not formulated. And ask the same question, what are you eating? We know inflammation is killing many of us, right? So if you want to really be fit, right, eating things that are inflammatory may not be how to do that, right? And so again, revisiting what you're nourishing yourself with or what you're not nourishing yourself with would be another variable. I mean, those are two obvious ones. But relationships, right? We sometimes have toxic relationships in our life. It doesn't mean rejecting them totally, but maybe you don't need to speak to them every day as a possibility, right? So are there relationships that you might be saying, can't today, but let's pick this up in the next couple of days and, slowly revisit some level of frequency that you connect with people who you find stressful, or maybe they're just, negative. We know that if we surround ourselves with negative people, that impacts us. We have to. We're empathetic beings, right? What also creates stress is money. So it's not how much money you have, as you know, it's what relationship do you have to money. Again, many of us know that, and hopefully you have a coach that helps you answer those questions, right? Gives you the right questions, because it's a constant self-discovery, not a prescription. Not at all a prescription, right? Many people, I'll just end with this, care about climate change because, they want to have a, planet that they leave to their children or grandchildren, right? And I can, shake my head like that. But since I never had a biological child, I have godchildren, but not a biological child, I quite frankly have gone through my life feeling everyone's my child. When my dog died, everyone kept saying, "Are you getting another dog?" And I said, "No, I've decided who I care about are the hippos and the giraffes and the elephants in Africa. Those are now my animals." So we really just need to look at our own, what creates a smile on our faces, what brings us joy. For others, get another dog. I understand that. For me, no. I decided to work with World Wildlife Fund and understand how ecosystems are being built. So poachers are more interested in keeping these animals, which actually keep whole land areas and ecosystems, which help our climate change issues. So, we can be sometimes surprised if we step outside our knee-jerk responses to things or reactions. We can find a whole other level of quality of life. Does that help?
Yeah, no, for sure. That makes sense. Okay, and so continuing on kind of with what you do, another aspect of your work, Only the Source. And you got a very interesting mission statement with that, to awaken, inspire, and empower humanity to a more peaceful, playful, and loving life. So that kind of did stick out to me. So I'd like to know, what does a peaceful, playful, and loving life, what does that actually look like to you? If you could describe that, if you could verbalize that.
And so let me say, given I only have 24 hours in my day, I've taken on a very large project, which I would like to share. And so I can't do all of this within 24 hours. All of what I've described, and when I include this next project. So for now, the founder of Only the Source, because again, I'm just the president, in summary, he and I believe humor, to address one of the questions about stress, laughter, is one of the components that we focused on in Only the Source, but I'm letting him take the lead in that. And so just to fit in, my current project is to employ 1 million low-income women in MENA, which is the Middle East, Northern Africa, part of our planet. And it's a big goal. It's a big responsibility. And the person with whom I'm working will help 1,000 of those million become an entrepreneur. So we're kind of developing this wonderful level of 1,000. So anyone who wants to be a social impact entrepreneur, which means, yes, you make money and you make a difference. That's kind of the definition of a social entrepreneur. We will help them literally write their business plan, their marketing plan, social media, et cetera, get partners, get funding, et cetera. We'll work with them to then each attract 1,000 low-income women who they can then employ, working with the Hyatts or, and Marriotts of the world, if hospitality is their interest. I mean, and it's any industry, it could be tech, working with Logitech, at hospitals, nurses, doctors. So just to let you know, Jav, I'm utilizing my skills to launch this project. Our pilot begins. It's now August, and in about a month, September, to support women in that area of the region. We will expand. We already have a partner in India. I'm in New York, so I will certainly expand to the United States. But we are starting in Dubai. We're launching it out of Dubai.
Mm. And what's the actual process of, like, how do you recruit and employ these women?
So again, what I said, we're going to attract the professionals, 1,000 first, right? And work with them and train them. Mm-hmm. And as a result of the 3-month training, they will in turn then begin to attract, and we'll help them, connect to and help the 1,000 beneath each of them be employed, and in a sustainable way. Two words I'll use for my value system is something that is sustainable and is holistic. So I'm sure you've heard my holistic approach already to fitness, right? It's not just go to the gym. I've already included much more. And the other, certainly is sustainability. And part of the component to that, for anything to be sustainable, includes things like healing, since we're all human and we've all had trauma. There's nobody who hasn't, certainly different degrees of that. But yes, how do we heal so that, again, we show up optimally and then live a magnificent life, however we define that.
Mm. And I went through just a bit of a backstory. I used to play soccer, or football, as we call it over here. And, I got pretty far, didn't make it all the way. And I had to get knee surgery, and I was told that I wouldn't be able to play ever again. So I had therapy, right? They actually referred me to a therapist to help during that time. And the only reason I'm talking about this is because you mentioned about healing, right? And the therapist said something to me that I always remember, because this is like 3 or 4 years ago now, maybe a bit longer than that. And he always said to me, I had a ability to minimize my problems by comparing it to other people's. For example, I would say to him in a conversation that, something bad happened to me, but it's not that big of a deal because someone over there has it worse. And he would always say to me that I shouldn't do that because I'm not giving myself an opportunity to heal from the pain that I'm having because I'm minimizing it. And just because it doesn't seem as big, it's still big because it's big to me. And I think that a lot of people do that. A lot of people, and I probably still do it now, not intentionally, but I probably still do it now. So yeah, that was interesting when you said that. That was just the first thing that popped in my mind.
Yeah. And then there are people who do the opposite. The people who wallow in their pain, right? And feel totally overwhelmed by it. And everybody has it better. So you were saying people have it worse. And there's those who go to the opposite extreme. And in my opinion, since I believe in the word balance, neither works. Frequently, neither extreme works. Right? Everybody isn't worse off than you, and everybody isn't better off than you. It just can't, right? So, the question really is to be able to see in a more balanced way of what, again, you need, just as you said. If I'm feeling pain, what do I need, instead of comparing to either extreme, right? What do I need to heal? And again, getting help to do that if that's, it's hard. Let me just say that, as I said, get help. We were never meant to do this alone, Jeff. We're social beings, as I said earlier, right? Clearly, we'd have to choose our tribe, our community carefully, because we're very influenced by them. But we all have a deep desire to belong, which is why many of us, the mafia is the mafia, and people join gangs. Yeah, it's not necessarily the best, but at least it's something, right? That's what science has shown us. Why? Well, we understand why now. We got it. Now the question is, how do we provide more healthy tribes and communities? Not those which are doing harm to others, right? So yeah, heal your pain. Yes, all of us. That's one of the responsibilities we have.
I agree. And yeah, in terms of tribe, there's one tribe that you are a part of that not a lot of people can say they are, and that is the tribe of marathon runners or complete people that have completed a marathon. So one thing that is clearly important to you is the health, not just physically but also holistically too. So I saw that you did complete 2 marathons. So what I'd like to know is, you know, you did mention like your relationship with health and fitness is not as typical as just going to the gym. So firstly, how did you get into running and marathon running? And then secondly, as this, you know, this is all about health and fitness. What got you into running? What part does that play in your life at this current moment and in the past as well?
So what got me into running is I was married, and my husband was a runner. He was in military intelligence, actually, and did a lot of training and very fit, good at jumping out of airplanes with parachutes and such. So so I said, all right. He said, let's run together. And so there were 5Ks, 3 miles, 5, whatever, very small distances. And, I slowly learned how to do short distances as a result of running with him. However, when we got divorced, my next challenge was, and we lived in Seattle at the time, though I'm a born New Yorker. I came back to New York and I said, ooh, now that I know how to run, let me train for a marathon. He has never run a marathon. So this is me. This is really, if I were to say, Jav, this is very much an integral part of who I am in every area of my life, just as I just talked about the million women. We all have many jobs and goals, and there's something within me to get out of my comfort zone and build the plane while I fly it. That's how most innovations occur. It's not complete. We're always building as we're flying. And some of us are scared about that. But I would again now say another tip we've been giving many, is embrace the unknown. It's not so scary. I appreciate that's our reaction for many of us. But it's like any other habit. Once you practice it a little more, you develop that resilience and strength, and you totally change how you see the unknown as just opportunities to find. Like, oh, gee, I didn't think. I'll just give you an example. Here in New York, the 3 first Saturdays of August, we call summer streets. And my street, which is Park Avenue, does not have any traffic from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And it's open to bikers and runners and rollerbladers and skateboarders and walking children, dogs, whatever. I've seen people walk cats, whatever. And oh yes, birds. People walk their birds on their shoulders. It's of course, right? With a few million of us here, always have unique ways of doing it. And this past Saturday, I'll quickly say, fitness. Let's say with fitness. So first Saturday, I went south and happened to meet someone running. I'm on my bike. And so met a stranger. We shared some values, and it ended up for the next hour and a half. He ran, and he's done not only several New York, but Boston marathons for 2 hours and change. So the man's fast. I could barely keep up with him on my bike. Well, and so we ran all the way. He ran, I biked. I don't know. I think we did 8 miles or so. I can't remember how much, but all the way south and across the Brooklyn Bridge into Brooklyn, back into Manhattan on the Manhattan Bridge, all the way up. So it was great. So this Saturday, I said, I went south last week. Let me go north this week. Stopped at a rest area. And instead of doing that kind of fitness, it was a kid-friendly area. And goodness, I could grab it and show. I made a canvas bag with different stamping different blocks on it from, is it Uganda? Sorry, I'm not remembering which, but each symbol, one was bravery and strength and peace, leadership, and I made the whole bag. I don't know if you want me to show it to you. So here's my bag.
Okay.
And you can see they're all different. I made the back differently. Okay. So it was a kid-friendly area. I made a little one that just says transformation on it. There was weaving, your wish weaving. All you need is sticks and some thread. And I finally did a fan. And I decided I'm just adding this. Play. The child in us needs to play. Right? And as adults, we sometimes say, oh no, that's for kids. And that's not what I need to do. Right. And so I would add this tip, us adults who are listening, part of our responsibility, or I think you'll find you want this as one of the facets. How do I take care of myself? I play.
That's interesting. That's powerful, because now that's just made me think, on a day-to-day or on a weekly basis, how much time am I dedicating to just kind of being free and doing something that is not just rigid and structured? Because I'm a very structured person. I got my program that I follow in the gym. I do my Muay Thai, so my kickboxing as a release. I work, sales calls. I really don't take much time to play. So that's made me think in itself.
You may find, Jeff, it enhances your creativity. We tell children to do this. And creation and imagination is equally as important as knowledge. I mean, Albert Einstein, who's a kind of smart guy, said that. Right? So yeah, equally important.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to take some of that and see where I can incorporate that in my life at the moment, for
Just
sure.
try it out, right?
Sure.
See how you feel.
Yeah.
I'll just say, since Barbie has now exceeded, I think, $1.1 billion in movie tickets, I did that with my friend Friday night. It was hilarious and wonderful. Just my opinion. Obviously, you need to see for yourself. But as I was biking on Saturday, there were 4 women all in pink. And what they were doing is all of them one of them was the mom, and all 4 of them were celebrating the mom's birthday by going to see Barbie. So it doesn't have to be a big thing, it doesn't have to be climbing Mount Everest, right? Or even of what I just created, doing some co-creation together. Again, doesn't require cost or extremes.
Yeah. And so I guess like another aspect or something which is obviously a bit more personal to you, which you've highlighted it on some of your social media as well, is obviously your journey with cancer and how you kind of overcame that and kind of healed from that. So kind of talk to me a little bit about like, that journey, when you found out, what the recovery was like, just that whole process.
Thank you. I hope everyone sees how much research you did. You are very thorough. And I even forget parts of my life until I'm asked. So, what preceded my being diagnosed with cancer, and this is literally what occurred. I have a huge ficus tree in my living room. I love plants, as you can. That's a very small one, but I love nature. And just to let everyone know, I live in Midtown Manhattan. And out of every window that I look, I'm on a low floor, and people go, oh no, isn't it better to be high? And I go, oh no, because when I look out of every window, I see trees, right? And that's usually what people in the country say. Oh, I'm surrounded by trees. And I go, me too. And when I wake up, I hear birds chirping. Anyway, I digress. So I was lying under my ficus tree, doing a meditation. And I don't know, Jav, all of a sudden, I just found myself screaming at the top of my lungs. I am committed to living a magnificent life, and this ain't it. I had all the accoutrements for a magnificent life in terms of the job I had and yada, yada, the home and yada, 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 what our society says is a definition of success. Again, I would suggest you find your own. And within 6 months, I was diagnosed with cancer. Now, that may be related and may not. I'm making the association because what occurred as a result of having cancer is it helped me realize this next tip or truth, maybe truth more than a tip, is that everything in life comes as two sides of the same coin. The challenge, yes, cancer is challenging in my opinion or my experience, and it's a blessing, right? Certainly the pain was challenging. Radiation is not fun. Chemo was not fun, at least my experience. And at the same time, it had me create, in addition to the conventional route I took an alternative. And I worked with 5 different healers, as far west as New Zealand, as far east as Italy, and everything, Hawaii, California, Victoria, Canada, upstate New York, and everything in between, right? And learning how to heal is part of my experience. So had an MRI, tumor. Okay. And I said to them 5 weeks later, humor me. I really feel different. Can you take an MRI? No, we don't do that till the end of the protocol. You still have a month and a half to go. And I said, just humor me and just take an MRI. It was gone. It was gone, much to their amazement. And so I just say to everyone, we have what we know and we have what we don't know. And yes, on the conventional side of medicine, they have their protocols that science has told them this is what we do. I understand. We all like the proof. Oh, hey, look at this, right? And as I said earlier, be open to what may not fall within our limited understanding of science. Limited. Science is just catching up to the unknown. The galaxy, look at what they're finding, black holes, the meteor delight that we had over the weekend, we saw, incredible, I don't know how many millions of meteors were in the sky this weekend. But just understanding that, they didn't know, right? They didn't know. They're learning it now with the telescopes that we have. So, number one, everything has both sides, both a challenge and a blessing. And I would say if we just consider that, leaving this interview, that everything has both, and I appreciate you may not see both in this moment, be patient. Just be patient. Patience is also a virtue. Just say, okay, I feel only the pain right now, but maybe there's something else that I'm not seeing. And just literally say to the universe, I'm open, to seeing what I don't see right now, right? But happy to receive that message whenever appropriate. And I would say that it helped me then interact with life differently, right? I began to see everything as both, which is a very different than, oh, it's terrible or it's wonderful. Out of balance for sure. It's just one of the many, how strong we are. And no one healed me. No one can. We do it ourselves. And again, that's something we learn. What does it mean to heal me? How do I do that? And that's a self-discovery. That's a self-journey. I can learn from you what has healed you, or someone can take some of the tips I've offered. It might work, but at the end of the day, it's for you to experience it. It's not about knowledge. It's only experience that we get to try it out and see how it really works.
Mm.
So cancer taught me that, among many things.
Right. And with the with some of the, I guess, non-conventional methods that you went down, would you be able to like maybe expand on any of those, if possible?
Well, they surely. So they all do something different. They all have different backgrounds, of course, aren't we? So yeah, I mean, certainly breath was a key component. Um, I think many of us would agree what's keeping us alive is this inhale and exhale. It's got to have some importance here. Of course, we do it unconsciously, because if we actually thought about breathing, and if we didn't breathe without thinking, we'd all be dead, because most of us don't say, Michelle, inhale, Michelle, exhale. We do it automatically. So thank you, God, or whoever, for creating us that way. So breath was a key component. And so, Jav, I'd add to that, I'd add awareness. It's one thing to just automatically do anything, including breath. And it's a whole different experience when we do it with awareness or consciousness. So if I just, here's a tip, breathe in and out consciously, saying, okay, inhale. Right? Okay, now exhale. Talk about stress. That's a wonderful opportunity to reduce the stress. Just breathe, and it's not hours. It could be, I would say, ideally for 1, 2, or 3 minutes. Again, science suggests that. And yeah, just it'll absolutely change the chemicals in your body, your nervous system. And if you are really focusing, if you can stay focused and your mind will wander, you just bring it back, as many of us know. Right? But we say, no, I want to focus on my breath. If we literally retain that intention of focusing on our breath, we can then say, and what intention, I'll just give you an example of one intention I may have. I want to be at peace for the next minute or 2 or 3. Or I could say, I want to experience joy for the next minute or 2 or 3. I mean, whatever your intention is, to create that. And I will then say, that's when someone says, how's your day? It's how you created it, right? It's how you created it. Nothing is done to us. It's all for us, right? And we just need to have some of these wonderful tools so available to us from other people. Yeah, get help. Get someone who you say, I agree with some of their values. Maybe they can assist me on my journey, right? To then, as I did with cancer, even heal that, much to the amazement of doctors and protocol.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's a great way to kind of wrap things up. But before we end, I always ask all my guests this one question. I end every episode with this question. It's more of a reflective question, but if you had to give one piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
And what came to me, and I didn't know to do this, is to trust. This is a trustworthy, generous universe. And I appreciate with all that is, all that we hear or read may not appear to be that. And I would say, if that's what you're exposing yourself to, I would suggest you ask yourself, is this serving me? Is the social media that I'm reading, or whatever you're reading or listening to, is this really helping me feel life is against me or for me? Because again, I'd say to anyone, how does it feel when when there is the feeling that I'm supported? right? I may not see it. Someone may say something that you say, that isn't really supportive. But again, ask, right? And if not, of course, you then say, no, that's not supportive. I understand. But at least, right, ask. And because it's never one or the other. So consider that life is incredibly loving and generous. And understand, as I say, I'll go back to the beginning. It starts here. It starts here. So if I can trust myself, I can believe in me, if I can feel supported by me, then, Jav, I can begin to have that same relationship with you. And again, we love and care deeply about relationships. And so frequently we don't begin with self to then show up in that relationship with all of that, right? We need it. I'm looking for you to provide me with all of that. And my experience is no one else can. No one else can.
Well, that's a good message. I think we will wrap it up there. Before we do finish, firstly, I'd like to thank you for hopping on. I really appreciate it. And if anybody is interested in supporting the MENA project as well, how can people reach you? What's the best platform for them to connect with you? And I'll put your details in the description. But yeah, if you could just let people know, and then we'll kind of leave it there.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Join me on LinkedIn, right? So my name is spelled actually, you can see it right now if you want. Michele Risa. So it's Michelle with one L and 4 letters for my last name. And, connect with me. Be happy. Please mention your this show. You saw me on Jav's show, and be happy to connect with you and help answer any question, or tell you more about my MENA project or any cancer or anything else that we spoke about. And if that doesn't work, I can maybe put in the notes my email. Happy to receive an email, and it's equally simple. Just the initial M, my last name, Risa, the number 11 or 11 at Gmail. So
Perfect.
Just MRSA11 at Gmail. Hope that is equally simple.
Perfect. All right. Well, it's the Spectrum of Health podcast. My name's Jav. Please like, share, subscribe. We had Michele Risa on today, CEO of Collaborative Solutions. Very, very wonderful conversation. Goodbye.
So we just had one extra thing we wanted to add to the end of this episode that I think that we need to get out there. So Michele, please.
Thank you. So of all that we discussed and shared today, I'm asking everyone to identify just one tip or experience that resonated with them. And as a result, put that into action. Right? Just put that one experience or tip into action and see what happens. And if there was more than one, then do the next, and then do the next. And I would love, and I'm sure you might also, learn what happened. Tell me your experience. Thank you.
All right. Well, that wraps it up. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And that is it, the Spectrum of Health podcast. Thank you again.